Welcome to the Grappling Grappling Rewind Podcast.
Welcome to this week on the Grappling Rewind Podcast. This week's show, we're going to recap the IBJJF 2020 PANS that took place in Florida because Florida's not shut down, and it's, about 6 months late. We are also going to preview Fight to Win 155 that takes place in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. First time that these guys have been out of Texas in I think like 6 months. Yeah. As always in the show, I'm your host, my co-host,
Zach.
How you doing, Zach?
Good.
Got you in for another IBJJF majors. I think the last major you did was Europe. The Europeans for IBJJF, which would have been in January before everything got screwy.
Yeah, we almost did PANS too. I think PANS was canceled like a week in advance, and so I think we were getting ready for it.
So we were gearing up for PANS, and then we previewed it a month in advance once accidentally because I was confused. And so here we are. IBJJF PANS took place. It was definitely a little bit of a strange event due to a lot of people not being there, but overall, some really good matches. As always with the IBJJF majors, what we're going to do is we are going to cover the black belt adult divisions for both the men's and the women's divisions and the absolute. We're going to touch on a little bit of stuff with the lower belts, as well as talk about a couple of matches that are not in the finals that you should watch or should be aware of. Just basically give you a big overview of the last, 96 hours of PANS action.
It's a lot of jiu-jitsu to watch.
Dude, I've been doing this a couple years now, and it is a lot. I
like it, though. It's immersion.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
So before we get into that, let's talk about a little bit of news. Everyone's getting black belt this week. About 9 hours after the show came out last week, Keith Krikorian was awarded his black belt from Boogie Martinez. We've been covering Keith since he was a purple belt. We've been able to watch his rise from really, really good standout purple belt, beating black belts then to legit black belt. Again, he's mostly a no-gi guy, all a no-gi guy, so it really doesn't change a whole lot of who he's going to face, but now, legitimate, you can go, he's a black belt, and there's no ifs, ands, or caveats about his skill level. So big congrats to Keith. Cannot wait to see, who he fights at black belt. Hopefully he gets a BJJ Heroes page very quickly so that I can stop having to remember his record offhand on top of my head. Definitely deserves it. It's been great covering Keith for the last couple of years. Also promoted to black belt, Jessica Khan, AOJ, standout brown belt. We've covered her, I think, since purple as well, off and on.
I think they said that's the first black belt that they've given out of their kids program, which is cool.
I think Khan actually came from a different kids program first before she came to AOJ, but I think the majority of her time was
she was definitely one of their standout kids.
Correct, so and she's been around forever, and so it's great to see her finally, be awarded a black belt. She had a really good match a couple of weeks ago at AJP versus Maisa Bastos in the finals of the brown-black division for the women's division. I think it might have been rooster weight. I always kind of mess up.
And anybody that holds up against or has that match against Maisa Bastos deserves a black belt.
We're going to talk about Maisa a little bit this week.
Talk about her today.
Also, Tyanan Dalpra received his black belt from Gianhafa Mendez. He won, I think, double gold at PANS.
No, he just
won weight.
His weight.
Okay. Took weight. Again, we've covered him for the last couple of years now as well. Mostly, I think, the last year. Huge standout brown belt. Excited to see what he's going to do at black belt. Let's see what other news. So that's all the black belts. Big week for black belts.
I feel like Mason Fowler should probably get a black belt at this point, but
I'm thinking the same. He also was at PANS and took
his weight and silver in the absolute.
Yep.
But looked really good. So I don't see that guy stand at brown belt. I think Mason Fowler is the only. Is he the one that's the only brown belt on BJJ Heroes?
No, that's Ethan Carlston.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because Ethan's been a brown belt for 8 years or something like that.
Right.
You're just he's still a brown belt.
At this point,
there's a couple of guys in the community that are still still brown belts. And you're just because you don't train in the gi a whole lot, and we all like to play pretend in the community like it matters.
Yeah.
So big promotions. Great to see all those grapplers go to black belt. All big standouts that I don't think anyone has a question that deserve it. So cool to see. Excited to see.
People that are going to be exciting to see in the black belt divisions now. Right. How quickly are they going to jump up? Are we going to see? I mean, we saw one.
Jonathan Alves, his 11th and 12th black belt matches, and then he takes up PANS.
Yeah, at least he's had it for more than 2 months. Cisneros got it for 2 months.
I know.
2 months. We'll talk about that.
So
that.
We got a ton of stuff to cover. Also in the news section here, the IBJJF hasn't announced anything.
Nope.
But it came to light that heel hooks are on the table for IBJJF. Flow Grappling put an article about it. Andre Gaval talked about it on Mo Jassim's 80cc stream. We've been talking about this for about 18 months now. And we've heard rumors from various people, none of which anyone can ever say publicly, but this has been on the table for at least 18 months now.
It doesn't. It doesn't make sense for them not to make the shift because I feel like they're going to start losing some traction. It's such a big part of the Nogi meta,
which is why they're having to do that.
I wasn't going to say that, but I'm sure they have.
Yeah.
Right? And they're going to only lose more traction. And already they're not the premier... IBJJF Worlds is not the premier Nogi event.
No.
Right? There is another premier Nogi event, and if they want to keep up, they're going to have
And it's
to...
not even close. Like,
No,
the
no.
World's prestige, I'm not going to take anything away from the athletes that compete.
No, and I mean, obviously a world title is still a world title in IBJJF.
But
Nogi
you
Worlds,
go Nogi, it's like, okay, did you win ADCC?
Yes.
Like, that's hands down the most prestigious event in jiu-jitsu.
And so they got to make the change to even try to keep up.
Yeah.
I think.
So that's been announced from various outlets that is coming in the new rules, apparently in 2020.
I saw 2021. 2020 would be.
Really?
I saw that it would be enacted in 2021.
Correct. So these rules to IBJJF, my understanding is that they get updated every 2 years. I've looked at this. For some reason, that's what I think happens. The rulebook gets updated every other year.
Yeah.
So this potentially is going to be in the new section of rules for 2021, as well as some information about like playing the edge of the mat, which we've talked about a lot on the show. And we saw this weekend at Pans.
Yeah.
We saw some really, really strict enforcement of
super strict,
edge, like way
questionably strict.
Well, way more strict than I've ever seen.
Oh yeah,
there was
by
a match
far.
with Felipe Andrew. There was a match with Jonathan Alvarez and Jonathan Gracie. That had an interesting result due to.
There were multiple others too that
there were a
just...
bunch of DQs and penalties for edge of the mat that were much stricter than I will call in the past.
Yep.
And even Howell on commentary was like, it's like it seemed like everyone was a little caught off guard about how strict this event was being enforced for edge of the mat. So I'm guessing that there's been a discussion internally with IBJJF.
There were matches where the points from edge of mat penalties really made a big difference too. So it was beyond just the DQs that were huge, but the penalty points were really racking up this time around and played in pretty heavy too.
So yeah, definitely a little more strict interpretation of some of the rules for this major.
Yeah.
And again, it might be that I'm just like, I haven't seen a major in 9 months, so I'm kind of unfamiliar, but it did seem definitely a little more strict than usual.
They were more strict. They had to be, I think.
So I'm excited for heel hooks, dude. I love me some heel hooks.
Yeah, it'll be good to see him in tournament format too. What?
You have heel hook wins, right?
I was allowed to heel hook as a white belt, man.
Yeah, back in the day. I remember
it was like a huge part of my white belt game, and then I got blue belt, and around the time I got blue belt, I think is when they made heel hooks illegal, and then like I was still reaping knees left and right, and then about 2 years after heel hooks were out the door, they made reaping illegal as well, and then like half my game was gone.
Yeah.
It was
fun times.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've been able to heel hook for a long time now, so it's been like just like dude, MMA. It's like you can break his leg, you're allowed to.
It's his fault.
Speaking of MMA, Fight to Win MMA is back after 5 years. So they got an Instagram account, and basically they're going, "Hey, we're back." And if you didn't know, Fight to Win prior to Fight to Win BJJ used to be Fight to Win MMA, and they ran a bunch of MMA shows. I think mostly professional. I have looked. It's been about 2 months that I've looked through all the old stuff on Tapology for them. But they ran a bunch of Midwest MMA shows, and Seth talked about it, he's talked about it for a while. Like Brittany Alkin fought for them, and Corey Sandhagen was their champion at one point, who just knocked out Marlon Moraes this weekend. Like, Fight to Win MMA is back. I don't have any other information other than that, except from they've been gone for 5 years, and they are back. Cool. So I'm excited to see what their first show
puts on a good
looks like.
promotion for jiu-jitsu. I can't see why he wouldn't put on a good promotion for that as well. And he's had a lot of time to work out the kinks that come with putting promotions together. So
I hope that we don't,
exciting.
see less MMA, less jiu-jitsu shows, because I
that
love
would probably
Fight
be
to
a mistake,
Win
but
doing jiu-jitsu. But if they can do both, maybe back one night, one on a Saturday, one on a Friday, or
or just
vice versa.
different units, different sects of the organization.
Yeah, I hope that does not take away from Fight to Win BJJ and like the grappling shows, because I love those shows.
Yeah.
So other than news, I don't think I have any other big news. I know we've missed some other news, but we always miss big news on major shows because
we got a lot to talk about.
We got a lot of majors to talk about. So how do you want to run through this one? Let's move into the recap of 2020 IBJJF Pans. Zach, where do you want to start with this?
Start with the big boys.
You want to start with the men's absolute?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Let's kick it off.
So men's absolute, we had Batista and Felipe Andrew, not Felipe Pena.
If
Felipe
you don't know,
Andrew.
I'm going to
and-
caveat this at the beginning of the show.
Yeah, oh,
Zach
man.
is terrible at names.
I don't know why
Very-
you let me start this.
Very
You're the
knowledgeable
one.
analyst. Terrible with it makes
garbage.
makes me look good at the names. So
Yeah.
if we butcher some names, what's up, Zach?
Specifically me.
Specifically Zach.
Felipe Andrew, Batista were the finals of the Absolute. It was certainly a match. It actually seemed to me like Felipe Andrew was. I think even the announcers were talking about it a little. Like he just seemed disinterested in the match for the first 7 minutes, right?
A little bit.
And so like
I mean,
there was
he
a
got
lot of.
DQ'd in his weight earlier.
Yeah,
and, like,
which
that
had to
kind
be-
of some weirdness.
It was a weird DQ. Maybe we'll talk about it a little bit
Wanna talk about it
later.
now?
Yeah, sure. So
he'd gotten DQ'd versus Ronaldo Maidana
within
in
the
his
first
weight class.
minute.
Yeah, minute and a half, something like
minute
that.
and a half. So he was
was-
had taken a shot. He had the pants. Maidana apparently had something that resembled a submission
Like a Darce.
attack,
He kind of had like a
Darce-ish
Darce
thing,
grip,
but was also just sprawling.
Uh-huh.
And Felipe backed out, and he was certainly backing away. I thought he probably could have made the argument that he was trying to create some space or trying to get Maidana to come forward by backing up. Like, I don't think that those are real arguments, but he could have made the argument. And then he got DQ'd, not for escaping the mat while he was in a submission.
He got DQ'd because this is what I'm guessing from watching the match.
Yeah.
We watched this right before the show because I was confused. I was like, Zach was like, hey, look at this thing again. What do you think? I was like, oh, yeah, he got DQ'd for fleeing the mat in a submission because it looks like Maidana has a Darce grip, kind of like from the front headlock position.
I did not think that's what it was until you said
That's my
right?
only thought. Again, what Josh is probably yelling at us right now.
Yeah,
as
he's
he
probably
listens to
angry.
The episode of the show. Because if you flee the mat in a submission, it's an automatic DQ. And
Yeah.
so they probably saw that front headlock Darce set up as a submission attempt, and then when Andrew backed out, he would have been DQ'd for it. Again, they were really aggressive for like DQs and penalties for edge of the mat stuff. Then this was kind of one of the things I want to point to of like, interesting, like definitely some changes for how they're reffing that now.
But so it was a weird one and it was a tough one, and he looked really surprised at that DQ when he
I got like 2 messages like, hey, could you tell what happened here?
Yeah.
And so that's what we're talking about it now.
Yeah, so he got DQ'd earlier. He looked kind of disinterested in it. I mean, a lot of times Felipe will kind of play that game. Like, he plays a little bit cautious. He plays this really close standing top guard game where his feet look dangerously close together, but he's very good at moving around and basing out when you attack him. And, Batista plays this game where he likes to set up his grips for a really long time. He takes his time getting the grips that he wants before he really starts attacking. And Felipe Andrew was just not letting Batista get grips for 8 minutes. It was him standing. There's the occasional slight attempt at maybe a pass and the occasional slight attempt at opening up to try to
moving enough to not get penalties.
Right. It was very slow and very grip breaky for 7 minutes. And then with 3 minutes left or so, Felipe Andrew decides that he's going to actually start moving heavy and moving hard, and he moves into a leg drag position. There's an odd, I have written down, a really odd exchange. So there was a lot of movement from this leg drag position. And then Felipe Andrew ends up in this high pressure passing, almost like leg weave kind of situation where he's heavy on the shoulders and he starts going for a knee slice. That turns into a back take attempt. Batista rolls through to single leg X, and Felipe backstep passes out of the single leg X after clearing a foot, and then gets the pass points, right? And so, he gets an ad.
He
doesn't get the point. He doesn't actually finish the pass.
Yeah, he never fully gets around.
But it was very close, and it was classic Felipe Andrew. He uses that pass all the time. It was a long, strange string of events that got him into position to do it. And I don't think Batista did anything really wrong, but it was just...
Andrew also, like, he thrives in those sort of middly weird Like, there's few guys that are, I think, able to capitalize on those positional oddities like Felipe Andrew.
I agree.
We talk about him whenever he submits some guy in a flash sub. It's always like, oh, he's kind of in a positional oddity, and then he's just able to capitalize on it.
Yeah.
And I think as far as guys that can do that, if anyone's going to get the ad in this situation, it's like, oh, I would not bet against Felipe Andrew to make it happen in this situation.
Yep. And so he backsteps nice, gets the ad for the backstep pass, or almost passing on the backstep. Batista prevents the pass by basing out into Turtle, and then Felipe Andrew kind of just rides out Turtle for the remaining minutes of the match.
What you missed is me realizing the headphone cord is short and like ripping my head sideways. So if you're watching the YouTube video, you get to see that. Oh yeah, if you're watching it, share with your friends, because that is the biggest way that we grow the show, and so we always appreciate that.
Yeah.
That really is like, if you want to help us out, like press the little 3 buttons and like share the show to your friends. Super helpful for us, and we really appreciate that a lot. You can also message us or anything.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Yeah,
Or-
so that was it. It was kind of a boring absolute title. I miss Buchecha.
Yeah. I miss Buchecha because like Buchecha will almost get beat and then go up. I gotta win and then win.
Yeah, those were the good old days. But Felipe wins. It was
Yeah.
that's what it was. I think we can move on.
We can move on. Moving on to the ultra heavyweight division. Where do you want to go?
Let's go
How do
ultra
you want to
heavy.
do?
Let's
Want
go
to go
ultra
back
heavy.
in reverse order?
Work down.
All right, cool. So we had a final between Max Jimenez and Luis Panza.
Yeah,
in this one.
I liked this match.
Yeah.
I love Jimenez's game. I think we all kind of predicted Jimenez to take this one.
I think, like specifically, anyone that I've done an interview with locally, like I will pick to win. And I interviewed Max Jimenez right around ADCC, and I was like, also how he looked against Buchecha. Like,
you talked about that last week.
The dude is next level, and so I'm very happy to get this pick, and we're not going to remember picks that I didn't make correctly, because there was a lot of them in this event.
Yeah, and so Panza, I was really impressed with Panza's guard game in this, though, and Jimenez was attacking aggressively the whole time. Like it was very aggressive, constant attack of Panza's guard, and for an ultra heavyweight, man, that guy's flexibility and his guard retention, he looked like a roosterweight.
What I really
crazy
like about
impressive.
Jimenez is Jimenez doesn't. He's like that next generation of super heavy, ultra heavy, and then he's not just like a big fat guy. He is like a legit big athlete at that weight.
Yeah.
And then but he can do big athlete stuff at that weight, where he's not going to like go through a pass attempt and then sit for 4 minutes because he's exhausted. He's like, no, I can do that again.
Yeah.
And again, I can Toriando, I can come in, I can knee cut, I can like lift your pants up, I can turn over, I can go for like a seat grip and like lift you up. Like I can do all of that. And I can do it for 10 minutes because I'm an athlete that happens to be ultra heavy size. Like, I love that about Jimenez and about his game, is that he will push a pace on guys that most guys at ultra heavy like can't do. We're starting to see more of it.
But I think Panza was able to deal with the pace just fine, and like he looked like as much of an athlete as Jimenez does.
Yes.
It was really nice, and I think that
those days of big, slow, ultra heavy matches, I think, are gone, because I don't think those guys can hang with guys like Panza and Jimenez,
who are big and strong and
they can push a pace. They're not going to like, cool, if you're going to take a break
and
here,
mobile.
Like, I don't have to. I can run around you, and you just can't stop me.
Yeah. And so I think Jimenez sort of racked up a ton of points at the end of this match, but the important breaking point in this match, when things like the tide really started turning for Jimenez, came off of an attack from Panza. He entered at single leg X at a certain point, and he got the ankle lock grip.
Yeah.
And then got Jimenez on his butt. But Jimenez was able to, he did something that I really, really like, and I emphasize with people that I coach quite a bit. He cleared the top leg, but something that he also did was he managed to maintain Panza's top leg so that Panza couldn't get his base underneath him. And so Jimenez could have gotten swept at a certain point throughout this exchange, but he does this nice thing where while he's on his butt, he just kind of holds the top leg up. And if you can't get that top leg underneath you can't come up for the
What I love
sweep.
is this works at every weight class too. This is not something that's ultra heavy specific. This
No.
is something you see at the lower weight classes, where it's like, cool, if you just remove the leg from being able to base up, they have to use their hip, and they can't stand up on you because you have the leg they need to stand up with.
And
it's
it takes
such a little thing.
Yeah, it's small, but also I think the big thing, and the thing that people don't get, and it's really hard to entrain, is that it takes a lot of patience, because it feels like you're doing the wrong thing. It feels like just this casual, nice, I'm going to hold your leg here for 10 seconds. It feels like that's the wrong thing. I should be coming up. I should be standing. I should be doing something aggressive.
You gotta have a level of patience to just like, hey, have the script. You can't stand up now. Now I can make the adjustments I need while I have your leg to capitalize on this.
Yep. And so Jimenez does that. He keeps that leg up. He takes the time that he gains himself from keeping that leg from basing out to clear Panza's top foot. And then that he crowds in after he clears that top foot. He starts crowding in and basically gets hip to hip, and then that crowding makes Panza release that grip. That grip is just no longer worthwhile. It breaks.
I talk about it a lot when I coach. Is that grip has outlived its usefulness. Like you need to let it go and like work for something else. Because if you just hold it, like it can't do anything for you anymore. Yeah,
and so then Jimenez climbs up onto Panza's. Panza gives up the back after that to prevent the pass.
Right.
Jimenez climbs up, and he actually misses on a collar choke. He gets a little high and falls off and ends up in his own guard. But from that point forward, the ball was in Jimenez's court. He had the ads.
He had the initiative in the match as well. And I think that's something Orlando Sanchez talks about like a lot. Is like once you have the initiative, it's so hard to take that back in a match that Jimenez kind of runs away with it.
Yeah, and so I didn't even get him any points, but it got him I think like 2 or 3 ads. Just from the progression of events that happened. I think he got 1 for almost passing, 1 for turtle maybe, or 1 for the sub attempt maybe, or I'm not sure, but he got a couple of ads.
I don't have the ads written down.
Yeah.
I was at the end of the day here. I'm watching Pans all day. And
I did it this morning instead.
My notes got a little thin towards towards the end of the night.
Yeah, but so then after that point, Jimenez is in charge of the match. He's got the momentum. He gets a sweep, and then he just racks up a bunch of points in classic Jimenez ways where he passes.
Yeah.
I love that he passed and he got knee ride for the 3 seconds that you need it to get the points. He got the points.
Knee on belly?
I call it knee ride because I don't actually ride people on their belly. I put my knee in your fucking sternum.
Still points. Still worth 2 points.
Yeah. So he gets the points from knee on belly, and then I think he gets mount. It ends up being 11 to something, but I think the real turning point was that simple little control of the leg after he was in the process, or while he was in the process of defending that ankle lock. Yeah.
That was the match. So Max Jimenez takes first. Luis Ponzas takes second. All the Brazilian names are always going to mess me up. Renato Santos takes third, and then Stuart Maddox takes third as well for that. In the absolute, we had Felipe Andrew taking first. We have Gustavo Batista taking second. Right. Marilla Santana taking third, and Max Jimenez taking third as well for the open class. Moving into the super heavyweight division, we have a final between Guillermo Augusto Soares and Arnaldo Maidana.
Yeah. So there were some really beautiful moments in this match. It got off to a bit of a slow start.
Yeah, definitely. I think definitely when I got off, that's a good way to put it. It got off to a slow start.
Yeah. But Maidana, I actually liked. It was weird. He was going for shot takedowns, which we did not see a lot in all of the majors. This major, all of Pans, there was not a lot of actual wrestling type shots, and Maidana was doing it. What was really interesting was his entries were gorgeous, right? Like, I don't know of many
You like
people.
wrestling.
I love it. Yeah, I love it, right? And so his entries were gorgeous. They were so good. And he was able to pick up Santos' leg multiple times, right? And then once he got it up, he just didn't do anything with it.
There was a bunch of that in his pants.
It was weird.
We were all talking internally on the Grappling Rewind. We have a big chat thread about, why can no one finish a single leg?
It was strange, Santos was defending well. It wasn't like Maidana had no idea what he was doing. Like the guy clearly knew what he was doing, but it was just
you don't have an entry that good and don't have
right. It was just a big contrast between he had this entry that was just so wonderful that if you are interested in takedowns in the gi, go watch the first 2 minutes of this match because he hits this same entry a couple times. It's an entry that Buchecha used a lot.
It's a really good consistent entry in the gi.
Yeah,
just it gets you to a really nice place on the single leg to come up and stand up on it.
Yeah.
And then he stands up on it. And he
that was it.
I was like, is he gonna treetop him? Is he gonna
He kind of tried to dump finish a little bit,
lift him up, and he sort of kind of got caught in the middle of all of them, where it's I don't know exactly. And this is sort of where I wanted to kind of pick your brain a little bit, from the meta of is there a specific reason you think he's holding him there and waiting for something, or is something he is looking for that I'm not seeing, as to why he didn't just run the pipe on the guy? Is his head too far away? Is he not lifting up for the dump?
His head wasn't in the right spot for the dump. He was a little bit, I think if I'm hitting that dump finish, you want your ear to be on your opponent's hip bone.
Right.
And his head wasn't in a place where it was going to function as a lever.
Bolt upright.
Yeah, he was a little bit, but he had a lot of options from there, from traditional, even wrestling that you're taught at a young age, he can kick the leg out in treetop, which is always an option. What he did have that was really nice that I like, that works well for the treetop, is he had fed the far collar or far lapel underneath Santos's leg and had it gripped with his backhand.
What I love about that is also it gets the posture of the opponent down. It's because you have that collar, it actually works as an underhook there, and they can't ever really get fully away from you, because even if they're able to turn the leg, you still have the lapel under it, and it sort of traps it in place. So it makes it really, really tricky to defend, because you have a difficult time stomping it out because your posture is broken.
Yeah, and so he had that grip, and you're right, it's a great grip. And there's a couple ways that you can finish just kind of using that grip alone, and a couple nice little trips that you can do if you have that grip. And he wasn't, it seemed like he wasn't really attacking any of those options. And the only thing that I can think of is just that he was being really cautious. It was still kind of early in the match. Takedowns can be dangerous. Santos has some really good sweeps. And so, like, if you're overly aggressive with the finish, you might end up on the bottom. And in finals at a major, maybe that's just weighing on your mind too much to really go for it. And maybe it's the right idea to not go for it if that's weighing on your mind, because then you might hesitate and then actually get swept, right? And so there are reasons that I could think of that you might not want to be really aggressive with it, but I couldn't, not one that I'm confident about, you know? So I liked that bit of this. And then this was another match, though, that I think there was a small detail that ended up taking a huge chunk of the match. And so Santos eventually pulls guard. There's some guard play for a little bit, and then Santos ends up in an X guard. Name? Madonna. Jesus.
You just give me the terrified eyes, like, oh no, I need the
name. line.
Arnaldo
Maidana. Jesus.
And Guillermo Augusto Santos Suarez Santos.
So Maidana defends by sitting his weight through, which is a fine. So Santos has the X guard, and he extends and he kicks the far leg away, and Maidana
kind of puts Maidana off base.
It puts Maidana off base, but he's got a extremely good base, and so he's able to stay up, and he's hopping around, and then he does a thing that's really nice, where he takes that leg that was getting stretched out, and he brings it sort of all the way around Santos's head, and sort of sits his weight down into the legs, and that's a really effective way to sit out sweep, and then you can kind of turn back in and get a pass, and so like it's a great way to pass off of that. And Santos does something that was tricky and difficult to do, but as Maidana is sitting down, he brings the foot that he was using to pressure out
to kind of fence him away.
But he brings it underneath Maidana's butt. And then that stops Maidana from fully sitting down.
Because now you're sitting into a hook in effect. Basically. You're kind of giving your weight in that position where it's like, okay, I don't really want to sit here because now I'm loading the hook, and at any point you can lift me back up and sweep me out, so I can't really load this hook anymore.
And so then Maidana does exactly like you're saying. He can't sit down that much, so Maidana does what he should probably have done in that position and comes up a little bit so he doesn't load the hook up, but that allows Santos to swim his foot all the way through to inside Maidana's hip. And when he swims that all the way through to inside Maidana's hip, he ends up in this sort of like calf crusher position. Like it's a non-traditional calf crusher where you would use your shin for it, but Maidana's inside foot is around Santos's hip, and his shin is across, and the knee's bent, and I don't think that he can actually hit a calf crusher because they're illegal, but what he can do... Oh, he can?
Yeah, he can.
Oh, see, apparently I don't know the damn rules.
Yes, calf crushers are illegal at Brown and Black in the gi.
Oh, okay. So he doesn't go for it because it's a low percentage thing anyways, which is why you probably shouldn't do it. I love them.
Yeah, I love them too. They're great. And they're also like prison rulesy.
Yeah.
Which is like, you and I are both big fans of like straight up prison rules techniques.
Yeah. But what it does do, instead of giving him the submission, is it puts Maidana really far off base, and Santos is able to like use that shin inside Maidana's knee to push him down, push him forward, get him based forward, and then just come up. And it's a very non-traditional sweep, but it's a sweep, and then he gets the points for that, and then that's what carries him through to the rest of the win. And so it was this small, I think that having the awareness that Maidana was sitting his weight down and then pulling his foot way, way up, basically touching his own face with his foot to get it underneath Maidana's butt, is what changed the course of the match. And I think Maidana probably gets that pass if Santos doesn't
Oh yeah,
do
he'll
that,
make the
right?
adjustment there. Like that's why I love like little transition pieces like this in matches, because it's you watch both guys do the correct thing,
Yep.
and then one guy makes an adjustment that forces a correction and a correct adjustment, but it plays into it's like all of a sudden you've gone from I go, you go, I go, you go, I go, you go to all of a sudden I go, you go, I go, and then you go, but then I get to go twice.
Yeah. And then I win.
And then I win. And
Yeah.
but it's all again. There was one mistake. It wasn't even a mistake. There was one correction that someone made that someone had a counter in. They got to cut off a step, and you
And
have to go again.
I love it
It's
when
such a
I
cool
love it,
move.
especially when it's these small positional things. This
Yeah.
like, I'm just gonna kind of gently hold your foot an inch off the mat, or I'm gonna
I'm just
sort
getting
of
my foot
swing my
here
foot
instead to force
Yep.
you now to not sit down and crush the X card. It's
Yeah.
just they're cool. So
That's cool. Yeah.
That was a nifty. I kind of got the same thing out of the match. It was just a nifty little
Yeah.
piece there. So super heavyweight division. Guillermo Augusto Santos Soros takes it. Arnaldo Maidana takes second place. Devontae Johnson takes third place, and Felipe Andrew takes third place as well for the super heavyweight division. Moving on to the heavyweight division, we have Gustavo Batista versus Dominic Bell.
Two names I can pronounce.
I would hope.
Right. So this is Batista wins on points. Interesting. These guys are from the same team and roll with each other every day.
Bro, first of all, I'm going to pause the show for a second. Props to these guys.
Yeah.
Like, I
love it.
appreciate, like, we've talked openly, even the commentary staff on the broadcast talked about, like, how closeouts are, like, killing the sport. They weren't as aggressive as that, but, like, you could tell that is the sentiment.
There's been some pans and worlds where closeouts are, a quarter of the finals, right? And, like,
Yes.
that was a big problem for a while.
Where
It's not
like,
a problem.
Oh, cool, Cicero Acosta, Gracie Bada, Atos. You're like,
Great.
cool, we're closing out divisions, which is, again, amazing that your team is so strong.
Sure.
But also it's like, okay, well, you're just not competing in the world finals, the biggest title that anyone can ever win. You're just not going to have the match. And these guys are going to like, no, we fight every day at training, so
Why
it's
not
like,
just fight here?
It's like we both want the title.
Yeah.
And we talked about it when I interviewed Dante Leone when he took on Jamie Canuto at Nogi Worlds, and they were like, it was both our first world titles. It goes, no one wants to share a world title. We both wanted to compete for it, and so we went in there and did it. And he goes, I was
awesome.
able to take it, but he goes, that's we didn't want to. It was basically like we're good with that. We're okay with competing and seeing who like the champion is of this. And so big props to these guys for
huge
going
props.
out and doing this, because this was a fun ass match. And like you got to see, both guys train with each other, and obviously no, because there was a couple places in this match. You should watch this match for kind of this narrative, and also because you can watch two guys that train a lot with each other, and you saw built-in counters and like things that were non-traditional for what you do in a situation, because you knew both guys trained together a lot.
Yep. And so I think the most interesting thing that happened in this, there was a sort of an awkward leg entanglement situation where Dominic Bell was actually kind of on the advantage. He was on the bottom, and he entered the leg entanglement intentionally and probably could have gotten a sweep or so. But at a very particular instance, Batista's leg ended up turning and slid off of Dominic Bell's hip, and then Dominic Bell had to let go of the leg entirely or get DQ'd for potentially attacking an illegal footlock.
That was so confusing to me.
It was confusing. I had to watch it a bunch of times. I'm still not 100%.
Well, and commentary had to explain it to
Yeah.
me. Like, again, I'm usually pretty up with the rules. I try to be, because like that's what we do on the show. We need to be able to be,
Yeah, me too, obviously.
be. Zach had like 3 rules questions at the beginning of the show, even though Zach is like far better than me at jiu-jitsu.
Yeah,
He's
they
like,
change a lot.
Why did this happen? I'm like, this is why this happened. Yeah, no, this is what I appreciate the commentary staff for, like, explaining exactly why. And this is also, I kind of thought this was a particularly dumb rule. It's like, 'cause
it's not my favorite.
He says like it forces the opponent to do the incorrect thing in the situation because you've made a movement where now the leg is in play. Where this is
weird.
Super niche, like reaping rules for like what leg you're able to attack.
Props to Dominic Bell for recognizing so quickly that
both
he was
guys didn't have coaching.
Yeah, well, actually, I think Dominic Bell's old teammate from somewhere, the commentator said Middle walked in and sat down or something, but I don't know how much it was, how effective it was. But yeah, so that was an interesting, like, I don't know, rulesy gamesmanship
It's
thing.
cool to see both guys understand the rules that well. Like one thing that Athos Gym is notorious about is that Andre Galvao knows the fucking rules
and knows how to use them,
and he will coach you to know the rules. So it's like okay, here's X, Y, and Z. It's like that dude knows the rules, and people have universally talked about Galvao's the best dude to have in your corner, and he knows the rules better than pretty much anyone else.
Yeah.
Which is why when he's saying heel hooks are getting added, like I'm guessing.
Yeah, I
that
believe
he probably knows
him.
what's going on.
He seems to know.
Yeah.
But so Batista takes it with points.
9-0
partially
with 2 advantages.
Yeah.
Like really dominant points win. I mean, it was a very good match, but I was really impressed with just the way that he was able to score here and just, just take it away.
Yeah, it was a great performance by both guys, really. But it was clear that Batista was the winner of this match.
And this is the match that the commentary team, as in my notes here, actively shitting on closeouts. Again, which I appreciate because I think it is a problem with the sport. So it's cool. It is really cool to see guys from a huge gym like this, fighting for a Pans champion, which is I think probably the second most prestigious, championship you can take in a gi.
I think so.
Second or third, maybe AJP, like World Pro, Worlds, and then Pans. They're some of the most prestigious titles you can get in the gi. So props to these guys.
Yeah.
Love to see it. This division, we see Gustavo Batista take the gold. Dominic Bell takes the silver. Yuri Santos takes the bronze. And Orlando Montero takes bronze as well.
And also beat Mikey.
Oh, okay. We'll talk about that now.
Do we want to do that now?
Yeah, we usually
it's the weight division.
We have a couple of matches to talk about that you should watch. And we'll talk about.
We don't
have
have much to say about this one.
Mikey Musumeci registered for the heavy division, and then he said a couple days ago, he's like, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to focus on like teaching or something else he was saying. And then he showed the fuck up.
Yeah.
And so I had a post I made on Instagram and Facebook and had some stuff prepared. And then Josh said, once I made these posts,
deleted it all.
Just so you know that he actually did pull out of it. And I was like, oh yeah, he did pull out. So I deleted all that. And then he actually competes, so I could have done it anyway. Not like salty about this at all. That I've edited a graphic.
You don't
and other
sound
stuff.
like it at all.
Yeah. So Mikey Musumeci took on
Orlando Montero.
Orlando Montero.
Yeah.
And he didn't get the back.
Yeah.
And he got choked
I think people were trying to make it exciting, and so there were a couple like articles and stuff about Mikey almost took the. I don't think that he almost took the back.
By the way, if you haven't seen this match, it actually is a really interesting match.
It's an interesting match.
It is a big man versus a very, very well. Both guys are great.
Yeah.
Both guys are medalists at like the world majors and very, very good grapplers. But this is what happens when you have guys that are of similar skill. Yeah, Mikey is probably one of the more skilled grapplers.
Absolutely. He's one of the best.
That's what I mean. He's one of the
most technical in the world, and he comes in with a great strategy every time. And I think that we saw him in the Absolute, and that's probably what inspired this. We saw him in the Absolute at Euros. He had a really interesting match against Muhammad Ali.
Yeah.
And in that match, he had this beautiful
260 bricked up as fuck.
Yeah, right. And in that match, he had this really interesting strategy where he was able to get sort of a spider guard situation and just sort of cling to Ali in a way that Ali couldn't do much. And Montero was not letting that happen this time around. Like Mikey could not
get established.
He never let him get the grips in a way that was effective. And one of the things that we saw in the Ali match was that when Ali did get a chance to not have Mikey clung to him like glue, the weight was just such a huge factor, which you would expect.
We saw that in the Seif match, too. Mikey's first match, when he went against a guy that was, I think, 4 something. Or like 4 or 5. Very,
big
very,
guy.
very large. One of the largest guys that regularly competes at the majors in IBJJF, Seif.
Yeah.
But, man, Maidana was not going to... Not Maidana. Orlando
Montero
was not going to play.
No, he wasn't. He knew the bracket coming in. He was not going to be a highlight reel, and he did not let Mikey take the same strategy that he took with Ali. It did not go as well for Mikey, and Mikey's clearly an unbelievable jiu-jitsu player. And there were moments where it kind of looked like, oh, maybe he will get something. Like he starts getting a little bit of momentum. But
he started to go from a Baron-Bull at one point, and he starts to make the transition over to basically square up with Orlando's back. And then Orlando basically goes, and rolls out, doesn't square the hips, and then he's able to get the underhook. And you actually have a screenshot of this.
I took a screenshot of this because it was when they got off the match, Montero has the underhook and the heel, and it's a matter of a half a second before he's going to
turn to guard. So
that's
Orlando gets the mount. Orlando Ezekiel chokes from the mount. And Mikey has to tap. Again, props for Mikey to get in there. I'd much rather have seen him at like light feather or like lightweight or like
Yeah, go up a weight class, maybe 2.
Yeah, I mean, because we've seen him take. He now
Not
has.
6.
He's got the champion at light feather.
Yeah.
Like 2-time world champion, only returning world champion from America ever. He went down. He faced his arch nemesis Bruno Malfacine. He took the Roosterweight title. It was crazy. I would love to see him go to light or go to feather. Like go up one. Like seeing him at heavy is like we're gonna see more performances like this. And it's like the dude is so good.
So good.
Go up like sequentially in weight class because I feel like those are going to be much more competitive matches. Those are going to be like
start trying to take them all out.
Or
Start low,
and then do the open. If you still want to compete up and fight these monsters at heavyweight, ultra heavy, super heavy, like go to the open like you did at Euros. Like that's what I want to see Mikey do because I feel like if he just enters into these like heavy divisions, we're gonna kind of see more of this because. People have, I think Orlando did exactly what you should do here. It's just like deny your grips, and then when they get a chance to put my weight into you, I can do that, and then I can get on top of you, and I can control you, and then that's what's going to happen. And Mikey talked about even in training, like he doesn't train with a lot of big guys, and so all the grips are different. And it's like, man, go up one weight class and murder those guys because you very well can go up like 1 or 2 weight classes. I just want to see him have success doing that before I'm really interested in seeing him continue to fight like heavy, super heavy, ultra heavy. I'm less interested to see that because I don't think he's going to have as much success, and I want to see him have success because he's very fun to watch when he's having success.
Agreed. 100% agree.
So that was a non sequitur. We talked about the division. So what do we want to do now?
Medium heavy. Right?
Man,
medium heavy.
I hate that everything's called heavy. We have like 4 divisions not called heavy, and we have 5 divisions that are all called heavy.
Yeah.
We have a finals between Octavio Souza and Jose de Luna.
Lira Luna. Right. So
many names here.
Yeah, lots of names. But so
I'm just going with my notes here, so if you can fill, that'd be awesome.
Souza wins on points. The beginning of this match was unbelievable jiu-jitsu chess, right? D'Souza had a really great strategy going into here. And so what he does, he pulls guard 3 times. And the first 3, or he pulls guard 4 times, actually. The first 3 times he pulls guard, as soon as his butt hits the mat, he grabs Lira Luna's pant leg and stands up. So he's basically, he's barely pulled guard. He's pulls guard, grabs the pants, stands up, starts attacking for a takedown, essentially. And so, like, he's going for that sweep, right? He's trying to pull guard and then immediately stand up, get Lira Luna off balance, and get the sweep that way. And he does that 3 times, and all 3 times they end up out of bounds. I think Lira Luna gets penalty points for it twice. 2 of them he gets running away penalties, and they may or may not fleeing the mat penalty points. Which may or may not have been legitimate. I think that if you're defending against that, you kind of got to go back. But at the same time, he was running a little further than he could have.
This is kind of where I've been annoyed about how the IBJJF scores some stuff. Is like there's certain times where you will get penalties for fleeing the mat in defending something correctly, but in the direction that is the edge of the mat. It's like, well, you can't defend this any way but the direction that you were going. And there was some of that here where it was like, okay, well, he couldn't have gone left or right here. Like, he had to go back in this way because if he doesn't, then like you get taken down. Like, there's not another option. And so that is when it kind of annoys me with like, well, he's fleeing the mat. Well, it's like, well,
what are you gonna do?
Is he?
So Lira Luna now has 2 penalty points. He's seen the same guard pull sweep attempt 3 times in a row.
Yep.
And so what his response is actually pretty smart. And at this point, he starts leaning forward a little bit on the guard pull because if I lean forward, I might be able to sprawl out and stuff the attack right away.
Eventually even pass
off
that.
Right, get my feet out of the way and start to try to pass. And then I'm not going to get my 3rd penalty point for running away by defending the other way that I was doing it.
Right.
D'Souza like tricked the shit out of him here because as soon as he notices that Lira Luna's leaning forward instead of running away like he was, instead of grabbing the pant leg and standing up, he gathers, I took some screenshots of this one because it was so beautiful. He grabs a very shallow
share with the class here. No, do this so they can't see it.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Because I don't know what copyright we got to deal with.
Right. So he grabs this very shallow De La Hiva And then he uses that shallow de la Hiva to push all the way through to Lira Luna's opposite leg. So he's circled his like left leg around Lira Luna's right leg, and then is pushing on his inside thigh. He uses his other foot to push on the hip, and he gets this like weird. It's sort of an elevator sweep and sort of a scissor sweep all mixed into one thing.
Almost like a Tomonagi, too, because he's up in the center of the hip line there when he's lifting him.
Yeah.
It's like I said, he goes, kind of sweeps him with like a Tomonagi thing.
Yeah. I don't know what I would call this, but it was so effective. Lira Luna's hips are flying in the air. It looked like he was thrown, right? He was so high up. It didn't even look like it was a sweep. It looked like he was being thrown off of someone's hip. And then Souza's able to capitalize on that sweep beautifully and then just takes the match from there.
Yeah.
Racks up some points, wins on points. It was just strategically the beginning of that match was so wonderful.
Yeah, you showed him, then you changed it up. And it just makes it work. And
it's like what you tell people jiu-jitsu is. Like if you have to try to explain like the sport of jiu-jitsu to someone, it's like I want to do something a couple times to trick someone in a way where they respond and give me what I want, right?
You explain this very differently than I do. Like, you ever seen MMA? What? You ever seen like UFC?
It's like that without punching.
It's like what they do on the ground in the UFC without punches. And they go, oh, okay. I'm like, let me never speak to you again. I'm like, that's the goal. Don't ever talk to me again. So, yeah, great match. Souza takes it on points. This is a very interesting match for how the penalties are being called. There was also like a penalty for an incorrect pull without grips that I kind of didn't understand. There was definitely some weirdness in, not weirdness, but very difficult for me to fully understand and explain how this was scored and for why penalties were got. But I think this is sort of what you can see moving forward. I'm guessing that this is sort of a match that we're going to see. We're going to see IBJJF scoring look like this moving forward. So I think this will be kind of something to look at if you're trying to understand the nuance of some of these new rules.
Yeah.
Just a guess.
Yeah.
So Otavio Souza takes the gold. Jose Luna takes the silver. Manuel Hibamar, who always, his name looks like it's two people. Manuel Hibamar V. de Oliveira Filo. It looks like he's fighting himself. Takes third. And then Guillermo Almeidas Gabriel Muniz takes the other bronze medal in this division. Moving on to, I always mess up that. Moving on to the finals of the men's middleweight bracket, another big division. We have Rolando Jr. versus Jackson Jr. Jackson the guy.
The guy. Yeah, Jackson the guy.
Jackson the guy.
Hey, I knew that one.
Sam the guy's brother.
Oh, is it?
I think so. Kind of an interesting last name. I think they talked about it on commentary.
I didn't have commentary for this one.
I had commentary. I watched it live the entire day, so it all kind of gets blurred together. Where do I start with this one?
Right. So Ronaldo Jr. just looks so good,
dude.
He's
dynamic
so
too,
good.
which is really
My
great.
Goodness. What I learned from this is that if you give this whole entire, I watched a couple of Ronaldo Jr.'s matches from this, and
dude, he had a beautiful match earlier in the day. With he had like a counter body lock to
I have
Hardy
notes
Ghost.
on it. Yeah. Oh my god, my goodness. And
that's in one of my notes matches you should watch later.
Yeah. Was that the Luis Valente match?
It was in the quarterfinals.
Yeah.
I have
Valente.
Quarterfinals. Watch this like sequence.
Yeah. So he's so good. And what I learned from watching all of the matches that I watched of him this time around is that you can't let this man get a lasso. Like his lasso guard is really incredible. Mm-hmm. Nobody was able to do anything reasonable with it. Like as soon as he got that lasso, he was going to mount an offense. He might not always get it. And actually, Nagai did a really wonderful job making sure that he didn't get swept. Like Nagai was not on the offense on top throughout the entire match as far as I could tell. What he was able to do was stop Ronaldo Jr. sweeps at about 75% of the way through them, which was a lot better than other people had done throughout the day. Yeah. So and I think that's impressive, actually.
I was really impressed with like how far he was able to like ride off the top of some of the hooks and is able to continue to not be scored on.
Yeah.
So he'd get thrown over and then he would come back up and recenter and square without ever having his hips completely turned over, and then Rolando able to come up on top of it.
Yeah.
And Rolando's still able to score here a couple of times, but I was really impressed with just the way that Jackson the guy was able
for
to
a while
not just,
too.
To not just
it was like multiple.
Scored on.
I was watching this and I like made a note that was There were at least 5 sweeps that were 75% complete before Nagai was able to settle back down and recover top position. And I kept having to go back and change that number because it was like 3 minutes, and I originally wrote like 2 sweeps, and then I had to go back and I was like, oh nope, there's a third sweep that this happened, right? And it ended up being 5 separate times that he was able to stop the sweep, and then eventually Ronaldo is able to get this grip that he used in the earlier match against Luis Valente, and I noticed it then and thought, wow, this is really interesting. But then I'll have some comments about this later. He entered it sort of 50-50, but he fed the lapel through, or fed his arm over his own leg underneath his opponent's leg. Mm-hmm. And so it's kind of 50-50, but he's got the leg wrapped up too, and then he grabbed the lapel.
Yes.
Now, we saw this in a different match, which was the stuff of nightmares, because both people did it, and it stalled for a long time.
Jonathan Alves versus
Gracie.
Yeah.
And it was the thing of my nightmares, and it was very stally there.
Double-seated open guard 50-50 with lapels.
Yes, that name. But Ronaldo used the exact same position, not double, but he used that like 50-50 lapel grip to get the same sweep twice in pans, one in the semifinals and one in the finals. And that's impressive to me, that you can hit the same exact sweep twice against 2 guys that are this high level. And it's what he ends up actually hitting the guy with, is this like 50-50 / lapel grip sweep. And essentially he just extends out the back leg. And so he locks up this leg that's in the 50-50 and then uses his outside foot to extend and spread his opponents. So
there's really just no base there to fight against, because now you have the front leg controlled, and then you're pushing out the back leg, and you've got to either come up or come forward, and you're unable to do it because the leg's getting pushed out, and then you can basically just turn over and get the sweep off of it.
Yeah, and that's what he does, and it works wonderfully. He's able to come up on it.
The control in that front leg is crazy.
Oh, it's crazy.
And also the speed that he gets and this kind of the sequence that he uses in order to wrap up that first leg, it was just really interesting.
He did it the same way twice.
That was what was kind of most
crazy. So like it's clearly
he has a systematized way that he sort of goes through, like, okay, I get here, I get this grip, it turns over, I change the hands here, then I pull it under, and now I have this leg in the way I want it, and now I can start fencing at the other leg, and to have like repeated success setting it up the way you've all seen him through it, Fight to Win, like consistently. That is his setup for this. Was really cool.
It's worth going back and watching both this match and his semifinals match with Luis Valente.
Yeah,
because and just for the Lucas Valente. For just that, like it's worth going and watching. Just to see how he's setting that up and how he's using it, and
there's also really cool. There's a really interesting rules item in this match as well. It has to do with when you can guard jump and not have points scored on you, and it's
I thought that too. I
have notes on it, but I didn't go back and watch it because in the commentary explained it a little bit, but basically. I can't even. I'm not even going to do it justice. There is a very specific thing that Ronaldo does that basically, if in the process of getting tacked back up on, if you jump guard again and you jump guard, you don't pull guard, it does not count as a 2-point sweep. It counts as a guard jump, which is not a guard pull, it's a guard jump, which doesn't get scored against you.
Yeah.
Very, very, like, extremely nuanced, but I've never seen it actually used like this. Yep. But again, this goes back to the Atos guys, like, they know the rules really well. And this is something like Andre couldn't have been coaching him on the sidelines. This was something that he had to have known, because the split-second timing that it took to make that decision to not get scored on and do that was just astonishing. And even the commentary talked about, like, a different ref might score that differently, but technically that's what he's done here and why there are no points.
Yeah.
And it was just an absurd level of understanding of the rules and exactly when you had to jump and how you had to do it to not get that score. And it was, you don't see that level of rules, like, proficiency very often, so it is pretty neat to see from a competitor in the moment. So that was the men's middleweight division. We have Rolando taking the gold. We have Jackson Nagai taking the silver. We have Lucas Valente taking the bronze. And we have Guillermo Barbosa taking the bronze as well. Moving on to the men's lightweight division. Jonathan Alves versus Michael Lira Jr.
Yeah. So Alves takes this on points. Interesting bit of, I think, at least, interesting bit of trivia here. This is the first finals that has been AOJ versus Atos.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Because the split is recent, and
the split's, want to say, it's within the last year.
Within the last year, I mean, I think there's only been one major since then, and it was Euros. And
were they split at Euros?
They might not have been. I'm not sure.
I don't know, but also yours is not. They're both U.S. based teams for the most part, and so
I don't think. I mean, was Alves even a black belt for Euros? This is a recent black belt, right?
yes,
I'm not sure. Either way, this was the first AOJ versus Atos finals match in a majors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember something that it's not going to come to me. So we're going to move on.
So Alves takes it on points. There was an interesting, I think the second half of the match was a little slow. Alves did what...
Let's not sugarcoat this one. This match was one of the more slow matches.
It was slow.
That we're going to cover.
And Alves, he plays a slow game. He's strategic about getting his points or ads and then playing safe.
Yeah, Alves will pass your guard.
Yeah.
And then he will, I think in his quarterfinals
or in this case, he'll sweep, but he'll do something.
Yeah, he will score.
Yeah, he'll score.
And then in the first 2 or 3 minutes, and then he will maintain whatever position he ends up in for the remainder of 6 or 7 minutes.
Yeah.
And then maybe in the last minute, he'll start pathing to the back or pathing towards a sub, kind of from whatever position he is in. But once he scored, he's really not incentivized to do a whole lot more, and that's sort of what we saw.
And it's a brilliant strategy, and it works out really well. Obviously, he just won pans with it, so I think that's fine. The interesting thing that did happen here, and this is another one of the things that I had to rewatch a couple times because I really liked technically. There was a really nice exchange where Alves set up started by getting a cross collar De La Riva, and then he moved into an X and he inverted, and then he does another inversion, and eventually ends up in a place where Lira is sort of, he has his weight on Alves' chest, right? And so his right knee, his knee is across Alves, the top of his chest, and all of his weight's being pressed down.
Almost on the hip line, sort of, but he's above. He's actually on the upper, he's on the lower section of the rib cage. And so, like you're going to fight off of like an X guard or like almost like a low De La Riva.
Yeah. And Alves has his far leg sort of wrapped up in either X guard or similar type situation. But it's actually a pretty good position for Lira to be in, and he's starting to develop the pass, and he can probably back step out to get the pass, and then Alves does something really, really smart, and he's inverted, but he inverts in a full 360, and so he takes he goes towards the knee, he scoots all the way around, and then he brings his own knee in between Lira's legs after spinning all the way. Right. And so he creates an opportunity there that it was just not even like on my radar at all. And it was really brilliant. So he comes all the way around. He does this 360 spin and he gets his knee in between Lira's legs. And then he's able to use his knee in between Lira's legs to push Lira's hips back down. And he takes a situation that I was thinking at the time is going to be like 75-80% chance Lira's getting a pass, right?
Yeah.
He's in a really good position. There's been a beautiful scramble. He's managed it. He's got one leg.
Has one leg to stop the pass, and then Lira also has his weight committed on the top. And I was like, okay, so how is Lira going to do this? And Alves just goes, no, I'm one of the best regarders in the world currently at the lightweight division, which puts me on par for probably some of the best regarders ever. Period. You're not going to pass here. I'm going to invert, and then you're like, cool. Enjoy doing all of that guard work again. Yeah.
And so then Alves gets the sweep off of it, and that's the sweep that he rides to victory, essentially. Yep. But it was a really nice, it was a situation, it's rare at this point, I think, that I don't see an opening at all, right? Watching jiu-jitsu, I think at this point in my career,
you've been around long enough.
I've seen enough that, like, it's at least on my radar. Most things are at least, I'm aware that that's an option. And so maybe sometimes someone will pull it off and I'll be like, wow, I didn't expect them to do that. But this was not even on my radar at all. I looked at that position and thought that that's not something that a person could do. Right. And I think it was a combination
here. Right. And then you watch someone pull it off and you go, I've got to kind of reconsider how I address this. And I need to know that.
I definitely don't think I could pull this off. I think there's like a crazy amount of athleticism and mobility involved in doing this. So like
also dropping your knees to your chest like Alves can do, and like dropping your feet to your face in order to get underneath. Because with how much pressure Lira had from the top position.
Right, that's the thing. There's a lot of pressure on your chest, and he's still able to spin all that way. And like Lira never let up the pressure. It wasn't a situation where Lira was like,
and if Alves didn't maintain the grips properly, Lira is going to pass off. Because Alves is going to have to shift his weight underneath him all the way, and so he's just able to do it.
Yeah,
it's really impressive. I think it's
really impressive.
Those are two of the biggest things in the match. There's a lot of pieces of this match where there's not a lot happening, or not a lot of like positional changes. But dude, Alves' first win to major, another one we called.
Yeah,
but again, this was really competitive. It was cool. I mean, Michael Lira at any point in time could have could have got this. I think it was
there was a little bit of
2-4.
seesaw 50 in there just for a couple positions, but it wasn't as bad as some of the like 2016 50-50 seesaw stuff that happened. You know, I think it was a quick one and it was a little unorthodox 50-50 play. And you know, when you get into those positions, Lira was doing a really nice job with it. He could have taken the points, gotten to the tie, and taken it there. He could have gotten this pass, right?
Very close match. I mean, it's 4-2 Alves is what I have it as at the scoring. I don't think there were ads, but I could have not had them written down. But overall, you know, it's cool to see Alves take his first win, first major at black, considering he's been black like 12 matches.
Yeah.
So Alves takes first, Lira takes second, Jontas Gracie takes third, and Renato Canuto takes third as well. There's a lot of fun matches in this division. Like, go back and watch Canuto's run here, because
Canuto had some nice matches.
Canuto was fun. He's one of my favorite dudes in the gi to watch, because he just like he plays a game that shouldn't be as good as it is, but he's just so goddamn good. Yeah, like he just does fun stuff.
He's good at, especially for lightweight. He pushes the pace.
Yeah,
a lot.
He pushes the pace a lot, but he also doesn't. There's plenty of guys that push the pace and get caught constantly. Like, he does push the pace as a top level guy, and he doesn't get caught. He does a lot of stuff that should get caught, that most people don't do as well, that could easily get him caught into bad spots, and he's able to not get caught. It reminds me a lot of like how Gary Tonin plays in Nogi. Yeah. Very similar to Canuto. So there were a lot of super exciting matches in this one. Jontas Alves also fought Jontas Gracie in this match, and there was a really weird like DQ for a push out. It was like a third DQ. It was another scoring oddity that happened that we kind of saw more of in this event. Yeah. I don't have a ton to add. But also that was the match that had the worst position in all of jiu-jitsu, which was double-seated open 50-50 lapel guard. Yeah. All right. Moving on to the featherweight division, we have Thiago Marcedo.
Wait, no, we gotta go light feather.
What? Light feather? No, light feather's under feather.
Well, sure, yeah, obviously. I got confused because the order that they were played in, I think.
They moved a couple of them around.
They switched them around, that's right.
Screwed me around. While my notes are all messed up. But I'm going through the bracket view in IBJJF because that's what I always have open for majors. And I organize those all sequentially.
Yeah, I guess it makes sense that light feather is lighter than feather.
It doesn't really, though. We're all playing pretend that it all makes sense. So we have... So on to the featherweight division. We had some technical difficulties right there. We have a final match between Thiago Augusto Macedo and Mateus Gabriel. Zach, you want to take it away?
Sure.
Kind of a low-scoring match.
Low-scoring match, 2 points. Came off of a takedown, which is...
awesome to see.
I guess it could have been I don't know what you would call it. It was sort of a sweep, sort of a takedown.
I would consider this one a takedown.
Yeah, I call it a takedown.
Although it comes from the guard, technically, that is sort of why they're scored the same, because you get into this weird gray area. Sorry, not technically a gray area. If you read the rules, it does very specifically state the distinction between a takedown and a sweep, but this is basically off of a tech-up sweep from the guard. Yep. And so...
grabs the leg, stands up, and then stays standing.
Which honestly works a lot better in jiu-jitsu than we both think it should. Like, we see a lot of high-level...
I think it should work as much as it does. I just think that people should do it more.
Yeah. So what we're talking about, we talked about this in ADCC too, or like even in Kasai, just the straight up bent over like shot where you just reach down and grab someone's leg.
Grab a leg.
You can do it from the guard too. And that's what we see here. We see Thiago just basically reach out, grab Mateus Gabriel's leg, and then stand up. He's in the single leg position. And then he does something neato here that I liked is he does the same thing twice, but he makes an adjustment on the first time. So his head is too far away to do like a treetop or to do a dump, like a dump or like a run the pipe or to do a lift. But he then brings his outside leg through the middle and tries to basically sweep and kick out Mateus Gabriel's far leg, which basically in essence drops Mateus Gabriel down. Mateus Gabriel recovers from this, comes back up, and then Thiago does it again, but instead of basically not settling the hips, he lands straight over Mateus Gabriel's knee and then sucks him down low and like basically brings his hips further into the mat. So when Mateus Gabriel goes to turn his hips to start to tech up, he basically has been drugged back down by Thiago, and then Thiago was able to settle the position long enough to get the 2 and stop the tech up that he had just had happen to him. Yep. And that's the only scoring action in the match, but it was a nice little adjustment that you said, you should probably have done that the first time.
Yeah, he probably should have done it the first time, but it was a great adjustment, and he clearly knew that he needed to make that adjustment after the first.
But I did
stack up.
like that he was able to stay on the leg after the first kind of failed attempt on it, because a lot of guys
Yeah.
will sort of get overzealous and they'll drop down. The guy will start to tech up and they'll let go of everything and just shoot for the
You
hips
see
and
it
try
a
to
lot.
bring him down.
Well, you see it a lot too. That guy will tech up, and then people like try to jump on the back, which I think maybe is a better idea in no-gi. Because I always have the feeling that in no-gi that if I can get the seatbelt grip after jumping up on the back, like I have a better chance of finishing. But in gi, there's a lot of things for your opponent to grip after you sort of jump up into standing.
Right.
Like if you're on your feet and I jump up onto your back, we see it in gi a lot where it just doesn't work out. But people do that in this exact situation, and it was really smart that Thiago did not do that. And instead, he continued to hold the leg, and he ended up getting the 2 points
and then
for it.
Mateus Gabriel comes back up to defend it the same exact way. He makes that little adjustment, gets the 2, and that's all it took.
Yeah.
So I
Rides that out.
like seeing the same thing again. I like seeing the same thing twice and then seeing an adjustment made and then have it work out, because it makes a really, really easy match study. And like, oh, that's why it didn't work, and then that's
why it
the
did.
adjustment and why it did work. And it's
Yeah.
it's from a teaching perspective, and for me, from like a learning perspective, it's why I watch a lot of these matches, because I'm interested in like how the high level guys are making adjustments. It's cool to see something happen and then happen again,
Yeah.
and then
Agreed.
agreed. Have then it work. So we have in the featherweight division, we have Tigusto is what I called him. We have Thiago Macedo taking gold. We have Mateus Gabriel taking silver. We have Samuel Nagai taking bronze, and we have Richard Nogueira taking bronze as well. Sam Nagai impressed
Had a run.
the fuck out of me in this event.
He looked great.
Dude, his win over Doderlin earlier in this bracket was
Round 1, too, right?
I was around 1, round 2. I think it was round 2, but I could
okay.
everything.
I thought it was round 1.
Everything blurs together. I have absolutely no confidence in where I think that match happened. Watch the match. Highly interesting. Yeah, we could scroll up and look at the
Just scroll
bracket
a little
too.
bit.
That's fine. Zach, my eyes aren't that good. Do you see where he is?
Does that say Doderlin?
Doderlin's second round.
Second round. Okay.
So it was the guy. It would have been the guy's first match. It would have been Doderlin's second match.
Got it.
No, sorry, it would have been Doderlin's
Guy's
first
second
match and the
match,
guy's
Doderlin's
second
first.
match. Yeah, because Doderlin was ranked
Yeah.
number 2 going into this division. Dude, Nagai I think wins 17-2
Yep.
or something, and there was a 9-point sequence where Nagai basically gets a sweep, comes up, gets the pass, gets the neon belly, gets the mount, and then ends the match. And it's just he ends up like we were talking about it live while it was happening,
Yeah.
and like, yo, where do those 7 points come from? It's like, oh, he got 2, and then he like got a 9-point move or 7-point move to get to the top, and it was
It's amazing. Yeah.
Doderlin's not a guy people usually outscore like that,
No, I mean, I think we picked Doderlin to win this division.
and I would probably pick him again. But man, the
man,
guy
that was
looked impressive.
wonderful.
Now the guy has wins over Grippo. Went like I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, a fight to win.
Yep.
Went over Doderlin. Like he is a contender in this division.
He's young.
And Mateus Gabriel's in the division. Like
Yeah.
I have turned a corner on the guy. Not turned a corner. He's a guy that's most certainly on my radar in a big way.
Yep.
Now. And I think I can see him being a contender at majors now, just with that impressive performance over Isaac Doderlin.
Yeah,
and
agreed.
what else was seen from him? So that was exciting. Watch that match. That was one of the more exciting matches of the pans that I got a chance to look at.
It was a great match.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. So on to the light featherweight division, the division that Zach wanted to go through first.
Nope.
Josh Cisneros versus Pedro Clemento.
Speaking of runs, Cisneros, oh my goodness.
Takes out Meow in the first
Meow.
round. First round, second round.
Second, I think.
Okay, takes out Meow in one of the rounds.
Could be wrong again.
I don't have notes on that match. I should take notes on that
man.
match.
Yeah.
And I would love to break it down at some point later in the show. But like that was, I think we picked Meow to take this division. I think we all picked him kind of comfortably to take this division. And then you ever be wrong?
Yeah.
For like bracket, like completely messes up your bracket.
That's it. This is the one.
Josh Cisneros has probably one of the more fun games.
Oh man, he's
anyone in
exciting
the
to
game.
watch.
Yeah.
He is exciting to watch. And so his final
He'll
against
just do stuff that you're not supposed to do when he's up on points, and I'm like, oh,
yeah,
I shouldn't
he's
do
sort
that.
of the opposite of Jonathan Alves.
Kind of, yeah.
Right? Alves is super smart, stays safe when he should.
Josh
Cisneros is
like,
doing stuff that he shouldn't be doing,
You know
but
what?
is still getting points from it.
I'm up on points. I'm gonna try to finish. Like you're up on points from the
Yeah,
bottom.
I love it.
So let's start with this match: Josh Cisneros versus Pedro Clementes.
Yep.
Where do you want to start with this one?
So near takedown. Well, I think the highlight of this match was Clementino's arm not getting ripped off. Was that the
So
match?
you, as a heavyweight, were very scared about this. If you actually look at the freeze frames of where his arm is here,
I was looking at him.
his arm looks like it's bent, but it does not look crazy to me.
It looked bonkers to me.
It looks tight. Don't get me wrong. So go back and watch this match first of all, because Josh Cisneros deserves it. At one point, Josh rolls for like an omoplata. It's a weird omoplata too. He has like the leg involved.
He didn't get it in perfect, right? He was making some adjustments, and so like he starts working for the omoplata, and he's taking his time with it and setting things up really nicely. And so he's working in the position for quite a while, and eventually Clementino rolls. It wasn't really a defense. He just needed to roll to make anything happen, or else or Cisneros was going to be able to lock in everything tightly. And so I don't think that he really intended to roll as like a pure defense. I'm going to get out of this, but either the sweep was happening or he needed to roll. So Clementino rolls, and then that's when Cisneros is able to get things locked in pretty nicely, but he doesn't get his foot back underneath him. It's still sort of in front of Cisneros, but he's got it across in a way. Clementino, sorry.
Yeah.
He's got it sort of across in Clementino's face or the front of his body in a way where Clementino's able to grab the ankle, and so it's not locked in tight, gonna finish.
Because for the omoplata, you kind of need to get your hips around. If someone has the front leg and is able to grab your foot there, they're unable to swing their hips out to put the additional pressure on the shoulder. So Cisneros does a great adjustment. It's like, all right, I have both my arms still,
grabbing it and turning it like it's
and just starts to lever the arm in order to like lift it up, which I have seen. I think I've seen this break an arm. I'm thinking, I know I've seen it once. I might have seen it break twice.
Yeah.
It's a very like super, super strong spiral fracturing position. But Clementos, what is it? Clementino. I have his name written wrong in my notes, and you've been saying Clementino, and I have it wrong in my notes. That's why.
I copy paste directly out of.
I was writing it live during the notes.
Yeah.
So, but he's able to make adjustments with his arm in order to not get his arm broken in half.
The only thing that I think that Cisneros could have done differently here, and like in the heat of the moment, I think he was doing the best that he possibly could. But like,
Cisneros
if you
is
want
also a crazy good finisher. He's the guy that has like the 12-second TP choke at Fight to Win. Back as like a purple belt that I think was submission of the year back in like 2018 or maybe I don't think it was 19. I think it was 18. He was a purple belt back then.
Sure. But the way that this gets finished, if this didn't do it, I think 90% of people tap to what Cisneros did.
Oh, hell yeah.
If Cisneros takes the hand and drives it, if he bends the elbow more.
Yeah.
So he's turned the shoulder enough to get the tap, I think, from most people. But I also think that if he just pushed the wrist into the back of
Turned it more like a
Clementino's head,
traditional hammer lock.
Yeah.
Versus like what you'd see there, which is like an omoplata Kimura position.
Yeah.
But
I mean, that's
change angle
also not easy to do. It would probably have gotten literally anyone to tap instead of just 90% of people. But anyways, he pulls this off, gets the ad for it.
Which I think is like not enough points.
Yeah,
right.
Like, no, it was
I feel like there needs to be a rule in IBJJF. Like, look, if you almost break it, basically, it's a point. You get a point for it.
But so he also gets a couple ads from other things. I think there was an almost sweep in there. There was almost.
There's a bunch of really
else.
dynamic stuff. Cisneros has a really nice Sumagaeshi counter off of a single leg defense.
Yeah.
Like there's a bunch of stuff in this match, and Cisneros is super dynamic. This match ends with Cisneros, I think, being in the guard and up 2 points.
Yeah.
Am I wrong there?
Yeah, no. Cisneros gets 2 points. But so there was this was one of those rulesy things. Like Cisneros should have won this match. And I was actually nervous late into the match that he was going to lose despite clearly being the dominant person, because Clementino got 2 points for, I think, a takedown early on. But to me, it looked like it was a near takedown and then by Cisneros. So Cisneros sort of took the shot, and then Diaz came to top after the throw failed. Or no, he didn't. It was a throw, but like Cisneros came to the top after the throw failed. So Cisneros was on the bottom and Clementino was on top. And somehow Clementino got 2 points for defending a throw and ending up on top. Like, it definitely was not a takedown in my eyes for Clementino. He defended something properly, but the action was initiated by Cisneros 100%. It was a throw attempt that failed, and then it was defended, and then Clementino ended up on top. because of the defense and got 2 points for the takedown, which is garbage in my opinion. It might be the actual rules, but it's garbage.
Probably the actual rule stack.
Probably X rules, but it's garbage, and I hate it. And so essentially, the dude defended a takedown and got points for it, and then was winning despite almost getting his arm ripped off and almost getting swept a bunch of times and almost getting right. And so in the end, Diaz rolls out of bounds to stop a back take that Cisneros was probably gonna get. Like he was real close from my view of it. He was real close to getting it. And so I think it was a case where the 2 points rule is very legit here. He should have gotten points for that almost back take that was escaped out of bounds. So that tied things up. And then Cisneros was able to win on the 3 or 4 ads that he had gotten throughout. And so it was a win on ads, but as far as wins on ads go in finals, I usually hate them, right?
We want to see points. You want to see kind of talk shit about wins and finals via ads, but it's like,
but this is when
it's great because it's like, it's not that like we played the 50-50 butt touch back and forth for ads. It's like, oh, there was stuff happening in the match, except the match was so close from a scoring perspective that you have to go to the secondary criteria, which is ads and penalties. Yeah. Cisneros gets it done. Dude's attacking for the entirety of the match.
Had his black belt for 2 months. 2 months.
Wins a major.
Wins Pan Ams.
I'm excited.
A major.
I'm excited. Wins one of the big majors. I'm excited. I am a big fan of Cisneros. We've covered him for a couple years now because of submission of the year. Yeah, and that kind of puts the guy on your radar at Purple. I'm looking for big things. Yeah, he's exciting. I hope that he sort of continues to. I hope he becomes a light feather Canuto.
Yeah,
where he's like able to get it done and able to like still maintain that level of like fun with like tightening up a little the scoring stuff where he's like a little wild. But again, that's kind of why I like him. I just want to see him have success, and so
he pushed the pace so much in all of his matches. It was wonderful.
He looked good. I'm again super excited to see him win that. It's a great storyline for us to talk about, and again, an impressive fighter that has only shown like big market levels of improvement while looking for the finish, which is fun for me to talk about because it's fun to watch. So Cisneros takes this. Pedro Clemento takes the the silver medal. Tamel de Santos de Jesus takes silver, and Elijah Talabong takes silver as well. Moving on to the men's roosterweight division, we have a final between Lucas Pinheiro and Francisco Borges. Francisco Borges. Yeah. Andrade. Let me find my notes.
Yep. So the only double guard pull to start in the finals that I could tell,
which at roosterweight is to be understood.
But it was nice for me. I enjoyed only seeing one double guard pull start. But yeah,
I like that Pinheiro is a roosterweight pressure passer.
Yeah,
I think the commentary talked about that, and I love watching him. And it also made me feel less bad about getting my ass beat by him when I rolled against him. Yeah. And I was like, cool, he won Pans. Like, I'm very happy that. Yeah, like if anyone's gonna beat me like very nicely but very easily, it's nice to have it be a Pans champion.
Yeah, now you got that story to tell people. Back in my day, I got beat by. Mm-hmm. Yep. So. Pinheiro makes some excellent strategic decisions in this match. I don't think it was the most exciting match, but
Pinheiro is also one of the most frequent IBJJF referees, and so he is a dude that, and he's also an Atos guy. Like he knows the rules extremely well. We see him reffing, and commentary talked about it. We see him reffing very frequently. We see him competing very frequently. So it's like if anyone's going to understand exactly what he has to do and when he has to do it, it's Lucas Pinheiro.
And so there were some interesting, 50-50-ish open guard play, some lasso happening. But what really, when the action happened and like when things got sort of interesting was when, Borges gets into sort of an outside Ashi type position, with Pinheiro standing. And Pinheiro does something where he drops his weight down and he's able to flatten Borges' shoulders down to the mat. And so he's got Borges' shoulders flat on the mat, but the outside Ashi is away from his shoulders. And so he's twisted, he's sort of pretzeled up down there. And then Pinheiro does something that I think is just a lesson in how jiu-jitsu should be done. and he just fucking pressures and waits. He makes Borges feel so terrible, and I think even the commentators were talking about it. Like
they were like, yeah, like see pressure pressing. Like even as they say that rooster weights can't put pressure, and it's like, watch this.
There are points in this match when you can see Borges' face, and he just looks like he's in pain, and
like,
that's
cool,
what jiu-jitsu is supposed to be.
I don't want you to pass, but I also don't want to be in this painful position, but I don't want you to pass, so I'm just going to deal with it. And Panera just sits there and waits, and it's like, but it's the sitting and waiting where it's like him sitting in that position is actively doing something. Like him, like he's not stalling. He is putting pressure into Borges to make him hate his life in this position so that his legs get tired, he gets tired. You wilt the person, and then I can start implementing my passing. I can go through because the person's basically, they've had to fight off this attritive like pressure for a period of time.
Yep.
And it's just beautiful pressure passing at rooster weight. Match finishes in the half guard. I think Panera wins it just via one advantage.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
From that like pretzeled up pressure position, Borges eventually does let go of that sort of outside ashi triangle kind of thing that he had going. They end up in quarter guard, and then Panero continues to use heavy shoulder pressure to get out of quarter guard, and he does like the knee cut out of quarter guard kind of situation, sits his hips through, and he's not able to control the pass enough to get points for it, but it gets him the ad, and then he rides out the ad to the win.
Yeah. So great to see Panera. I'm not sure if Panera has a major win before. It wouldn't surprise me if he did, but looks good at rooster weight. Rooster weight is
great.
wide open for new talent to start taking majors with Malvacine out. I'm curious to see it and how he looks at Worlds.
Mikey competing at heavyweight.
Yeah, well, Mikey's not gonna make rooster. I don't think. Again, he had to like shave his head and like looked like he was gonna die.
Yeah.
So I think the lowest we'll see Mikey is like light feather. I would honestly like to see him at feather or like light if he wants to really move around and like play with the divisions.
Yeah.
So that does it for the men's. We talked about the absolute right at the beginning.
Yep. Talked about
So that does it for all the men's divisions. Where do you want to start with the ladies divisions?
Start at the top again. I think we had some closeouts in absolute and the upper weights.
Yep, I think Atos closed out with Rafael Guedes taking the gold from Atos and Luisa Montero taking second place there. Third place is Maria Maljacek, and third place also is Gabby McComb for the women's open class. On the super heavyweight division, we had another closeout between Kendall Marie Riesling and Jessica Flowers, both of Gracie Barra. We had on heavyweight division, Natalia DeJesus was overweight, so she was the only person in that division, so there was actually no medals awarded in the heavyweight division for the women. Medium heavyweight division, we had Andressa Sintra versus Maria Maljacek, and hell yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going through the brackets, I gotta find my notes now.
Sintra takes it. It was not the most exciting match. Sintra she got some ads for almost passing, some almost stack passing.
Maljacek.
So
how we'll pronounce it differently. I've pronounced it wrong for years.
Okay.
I think I am pronouncing it incorrectly.
I think you are, because I'm trying to say it the way that
Yes.
Howell was pronouncing it, and I assume that he's correct because he usually.
Well, he pronounces stuff a little differently as well. Sometimes he's not necessarily always correct. He's usually. I will give him. He is usually correct.
A lot more than me.
Yes.
But
Let's call her Maria.
Yeah, okay. Maria was playing a really aggressive bottom game. Sintra was playing a stable, safe top game, got some almost passes. She was using a lot of low pressure passing and got ads for that. And she kind of just maintained those ads, made sure that Maria was not able to pull off any of the guard stuff she was doing. So the guard play looked pretty good. Maria was doing some nice entries and some nice attacks, and Sintra's base is really solid. She's very clearly a very good jiu-jitsu player, but she wasn't pushing the action
multiple-time world medalist. I think like major medalist. I don't know if she has a world title.
I don't know either.
Know she has second at a world title. Like very, very. I could be getting this wrong. I apologize if I've got her accolades incorrect. Very, very good grappler, and that was
But it was a safe match, and she won with the ads.
The last minute of this match is fun. You should watch the last minute of this match. That's where a lot of like the really good transitions happen. Yeah. And I think somewhere where the ads are scored there. So my notes said, "Hey, watch." It says, "Watch the last minute of this match." So that does it for the medium heavyweight division. We have Andressa Sintra taking the gold, Maria taking second place, Veda Toscano taking third, and Emily Alves taking third as well. On to the middleweight division, we have Rafael Ribeiro Guedes versus Claire North.
Yep. And so in this one, Claire North was playing a lot of closed guard. I think it was, I have down here, 7 minutes of closed guard. And Guedes was trying to open, kind of pushing forward, but it was not a lot of action
really
until the
North
last.
Was in the closed guard for the majority of this match,
Yeah.
and there's a weird restart at some point, and there was a weird penalty for North for some reason, and her coach looked really, really upset about it. I couldn't exactly determine.
I wasn't sure either.
What the penalty was for. This again, I need to go back through. I spent about, I think 3 months ago, 4 months ago at this point, I went through most of the IBJJF rules. I needed to do so again, obviously, because I should not be having this many questions about
There were some weird calls in this one too, and they were pressing this whole pans. They were pushing and calling things that are in the rule book, but have not been called aggressively in the past.
Yeah, I think
it's been challenging to
stuff.
Yeah.
So, but again, it does frustrate me as someone that watches a lot of this and talks about this, because we're talking to a lot of people that I would like to be correct when we're talking about this stuff, because I think it's just professional to do so.
Yeah.
I need to go back through and kind of my note to the listeners here, hey, I'm going to go through, I'm going to get better at these rules so that I'm not sounding like an idiot when we're talking about this.
They're going to change them soon too, so maybe we'll have a...
Maybe I need to do both, just so that I know what changed.
Yeah. So, anyways, a lot of close guard, and then Guedes has a couple almost passes, ends up with 2 ads, I think,
and that's sort of the match.
That's the match. Yeah.
Yep.
And so I think what the announcers were saying on this one, I watched this one with the announcement, and what the announcers were saying this one, and I really agree, was just that North opened up way too late. Her guard game looked good in the first minute. She had this lasso, almost hit a lasso
and
sweep.
Even towards
and it was
the end, we saw her she's got really long legs, and so she's able to really off balance well. When she started to open up, you saw the first 2 times that she opened up, near sweeps.
Yeah, and so her guard looked really good when she was playing it, but it was just a lot of close.
Why she decided to sit so long in the closed guard.
Have we seen Claire North before?
I'm not super familiar. I recognize her. I recognize her coach. I don't remember where we've seen her.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I've seen her before. That doesn't mean that she's not an experienced competitor, but I could also see a scenario where it's the finals at Pans. You might you might be a little nervous playing conservative, and maybe that's what happened, or maybe there's a lot of things.
Conservative game plan is what wins you the matches.
Sure,
so,
yeah.
I can definitely see if you're not going to get stalling calls, you're not going to get. We saw Tammy Musumeci lock up a body triangle from the bottom to win worlds.
Yeah.
There's definitely a place to stall in the closed guard.
Yeah.
I just was kind of curious, especially when we saw the dynamism of her open guard and
right
how
away,
how well she was sweeping.
Yeah.
Why she didn't sort of look for that earlier, because I think this is a match that she very well could have taken had she opened up earlier and really started being more active with her sweeps. So that's my takeaway from the match. In this match, we have, in this division for the women's middleweight, we have Guedes taking that gold. We have Claire North taking the silver. We have Vanessa Griffin, local here from Maryland, taking the bronze, and we have Brenda Pathena taking the bronze as well. In the women's lightweight division, we have Luisa Montero taking on Natalie Ribeiro. This is a rematch from a couple weeks ago.
Yep.
Atos versus Checkmat. What do you got for this one?
Yeah, so Luisa wins on points. Montero wins on points. The match was really good.
Yeah.
It was probably out of all the finals matches,
6.
this was one of the best finals matches, men's and women's, in all of Pans. I loved this match.
Her 6th Pans title. 6 Pans title.
6.
She's the queen of Pans.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
But oh man, it was very technical play, and the thing that I noticed most about this was that the big switch and what got Montero some points from passing, and really gave her the points that got her the momentum and took the match. Was she was for a while low pressure passing, right? So she was playing over under or knee pinch passing
the match
attempts,
looked
and
really similar to the fight to win match we saw a couple of weeks ago, except this was in the gi instead of being in no gi. The dynamic of the match, again, you fight somebody 2 weeks before, the match dynamic is probably going to look really similar.
Yeah. And so she was doing this low passing, and then she after she's doing the low pressure passing, she switches to outside pressure or outside passing, sort of like mobility, movement, trying to get around the legs, and that doesn't work because Ribeiro's got unbelievable guard retention. And then finally she switches up like very quickly from this outside pass, and then she switches sides and moves to like high pressure like leg weave type passing and is able to get it right away. And so she did this really nice thing where she took away the flexibility of Ribeiro, which was what was stopping her from getting the outside passing and was stopping her from getting the low pressure
really
passing.
Great guard retention we see from Ribeiro.
Yeah,
she
it's unbelievable guard retention.
Progressively took that away, and then all of a sudden was able to implement and get around the guard.
And one of the things that high pressure passing, sort of like leg weave style passing, is really good at doing is negating a lot of that flexibility. And so she was able to pass with that and got her points, in her initial points, and then was able to take it from there. And it ended up being a really beautiful match. But such a good matchup between these two. I wouldn't mind seeing it more even. Yeah, right.
No,
like
the dynamics are cool, and I love that both women, the way that their games kind of play into each other, we do see action on both sides and both fronts, and so it's like we get a very, very competitive match every time, and we see these nice little game plan and meta changes. So that's a lot of fun. Luisa Montero takes her 6th PANS title. Natalie Ribeiro takes silver. Nikki Sullivan takes bronze, and Natasha Aline takes bronze as well. Moving on to the women's featherweight division, we have Gabby McComb versus Amanda Alaquin in this one.
Yep. And so win on ads for Gabby McComb. It was not the most exciting match.
It was a lot of closed guard in the match. We've seen McComb moving down a couple of weight classes actually to featherweight. I'm not sure if we've seen her at a major before at featherweight.
Yeah.
So it's cool to see her, move down the weight and then, able to get a PANS win off of it. McComb, tries to get the back with the quickness in my notes, but Tubby's able to stop it. And then
there was an
after that
attempt, I think, that came off of, or after? Was it after?
Yeah, I think it's after.
Yeah.
And that's really, there's 2 ads scored by McComb for that sequence, and she's able to take it. So McComb is in the gold medal. Tubby takes 2nd place. Lana Perez takes 3rd, and Taylor Bogney takes 3rd as well. Moving into the light featherweight division, which is actually the lowest division for the women's weight class because there was no roosterweights registered for this event. We have Maisa Bastos versus Patty Fontes. I think these women have met a bunch of times.
The only finals submission in PANS this year. Adult.
Was there a submission here?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you was.
Arm triangle.
Yep. In my notes, I said I have Bastos win in bold.
Yeah.
And then the line above it says arm triangle. There we go. That's where it is.
Yeah. It's and the strategy and like this is another one of those little edges things, and this time it ends up giving Bastos the submission, and essentially, the match up to this point was really good. There was a lot of really nice spider play from Bastos. I mean, she was clearly dominant for the most of the match. But Patty was doing a really nice job defending for quite a while. And then we end up in a situation where I think Bastos had swept and was working for the pass. She had quarter guard. She's doing some like high shoulder pressure passing from the quarter guard. And Patty turns for a back take. And Patty gives up her back. There's a back take attempt. And then Patty turns back in, but as Patty Fontes is turning back in, she starts to try to clear her arm, and Bastos recognizes that Patty's turning back into her, drops her head down to the mat. So Patty can't clear her inside arm.
Yeah.
And
she's stuck on the shoulder on top of the head.
Yep. And as she's turning, so her arm gets stuck on the back of Bastos' head, and then Bastos starts creeping her own arm up in, and Patty Fontes turned into the arm triangle, right? And so essentially what Bastos did in this situation was allowed Patty Fontes to put herself into an arm triangle just by placing her head and arm in the right position. Yeah. And by the time that arm triangle was set in, it didn't matter that Bastos was still in quarter guard because it was so damn tight.
And the pressure, like the chest-to-chest pressure was really, really tight.
Oh, it was unbelievable.
I love this because you don't see this finished a ton in the gi. This is something that is characteristically a no-gi finish at the lighter weight classes for the men. So it's really cool to see the exact same adjustments in a women's finals at PANS in the gi that we see like very frequently like in men's featherweight matches. Like, there's so many guys that have almost this exact same quarter guard finishing sequence. They force the turn, they get the head low, and then the arm gets stuck, and they creep the other arm back in. And look at every high level guy's arm triangle tutorial. this is exactly what it looks like, and it's really cool. And it's, again, the only submission finish that we had in the Pan finals for the adult black belts this year. And so Bastos takes the win. I'm not sure how many titles Bastos has at Pans, but it would not surprise me that she has a couple at this point.
Wouldn't surprise me either.
So that was the 2020 IBJJF Pans. There was a lot of weirdness with registrations for people not showing, people showing up out of weight. Keen was injured, but he was still within the brackets. So there was just a lot of weirdness. If you go back and look at the IBJJF brackets, I'm not sure if they'll still be up by the time that this show comes out tomorrow.
Yep.
You can see a lot of that, but there was some really good matches here. We talked about going back and watching Isaac Godwin versus Sam Nagai. The Alves match versus Jontas Gracie was interesting. Rolando Jr. with his big Harigoshi in the quarterfinals. Josh Cisneros versus Paulo Miao, and Mikey Musumeci in his heavyweight versus Orlando Montero. Yep. The only other kind of matches you want to touch on, or anything else on Pans that you want to touch on before we move into the preview section?
Like I said, I like watching same as last time, I like watching the brown belts and purple belts to see where the meta is there, see what those guys are doing, and how it's going to transition into some of the black belt matches and higher stuff. And so,
any good takeaways from
got
the
some
brown
notes
belts?
on that brown belt in particular,
because I did not get a chance to watch all the brown belts.
I don't watch them very closely. I watch them enough to get a feel for how the meta's going and what these guys are doing.
The Euros analysis was super interesting.
So
I specifically didn't watch some of them because I knew that you were going to have great takeaways, and I had a great fun time listening to the Euros recap of the purple and brown. So take it away, Zach.
So brown this time was really, really interesting. There were a lot of wrestling shots in the finals, and most of them ended up with takedowns. And so this is something that I harp on because I was a wrestler growing up, and I like wrestling and jiu-jitsu, and I push people to do it, but it gives you 2 points. But the pushback is always that it takes a lot of energy and it's risky, right? Maybe you're putting your head in a place where that's the argument against it, right? And the biggest argument and the best argument is the energy argument, but whatever. But what I noticed about this is that almost every shot that was executed in a real way, and I'm not talking about I bent over and slapped your ankle. I'm talking real shots,
actual shot where I'm looking to take you down.
Every single one of them ended up with a takedown. There was not a legitimate shot where the person was in underneath the hips.
Brown belt finals.
Brown belt finals, just brown belt finals only. I don't know how things went in the earliest, but every shot that ended up with a person getting a leg ended with points, which is something telling about maybe how the meta is going, but also just how brown belt, purple belt, blue belt, white belt works, right?
Yeah.
If you get a good shot, you can finish takedowns because people don't know how to defend takedowns.
I'll give you that. That is not
so
unrealistic.
That was a big takeaway from me that I really liked. Another thing that I was paying very close attention to again this time, and so one of the big points from purple and brown belt worlds, or from Euros that I was watching, was that I was seeing a lot of Keenan-esque lasso guards. Tons of lapel work, right?
Specifically, I remember at purple belt, you saw every single finals match involved some sort of lasso or worm guard variant for every single finals match at Euros for the purple belts. Not necessarily for the brown belts, but all the purple belts.
All the purples
had those.
So there was a lot less of that at purple this time, and I'll talk about purple, but specifically at brown belt, about half the matches had some variation of a lapel guard, worm guard thing in it. And only in one single match did that lapel guard actually result in a positive position change for the person that was pulling it. And more often, 4 or 5 different times that someone entered into a lapel variation, it got smashed or they ended up getting passed. Right, and so
a very stark change, from
very different from
8 months ago,
right?
Yep.
And it's also half a world away.
Yeah, it's also European competition versus,
and especially at brown belt and purple belt, you're going to get more Americans at Pans. You're going to get more
also
Europeans.
With the world being the kind of current state it is,
right? You're not going to get any Europeans here because then they can't go home.
Correct. Yeah,
I think they can actually, but
I don't know if they can actually. Is there still
if you have a visa from there?
Is there still a travel embargo?
I'm not sure.
Place for non.
I know if you live here and have a visa there, you can go home.
Yes, but I don't actually know if you can just. I don't know if there's tourist travel.
Either way, you shouldn't take a visit to Florida. So probably not a lot of people from Europe here. So it could also be like a meta, location meta,
pick and
right?
choose your takeaways from there. But from a technical perspective, for who showed up to this event, That's what you're seeing.
Yep. And so in the ultra heavy finals, we had someone playing lapel guard, and actually what I have is pulled lapel guard, got fucking wrecked. Pulled lapel guard, got smashed. I don't really remember what that means, but it apparently didn't work out for them. We also have at heavy, someone pulls lapel guard. They get the sweep, but immediately after getting the sweep, they are in a position that's not stable, and they get their back taken. So I don't really count that as a win because they got their back taken off of it. We have another lapel guard here that I have. Lapel guard gets passed. Lapel guard gets passed. Lapel guard gets a sweep at light feather. The only... and then Rooster, lapel guard, near back take from the lapel guard, then got passed and mounted. So sometimes it's looking like these lapel guards are working initially, but then people aren't able to capitalize once it's gone, and they're putting themselves in really bad, risky positions, which I think is just a result of, these lapel guards are really difficult to get out of once you finish the pass.
Right.
And I think what's happening, or what it looked like was happening, was people are getting good at the offense from them. People are getting good at the stalling from them, which is fine. Mm-hmm. But then once they get the sweep, they release that lapel guard to try to sit up, or they're trying to use that lapel guard to sit up, and they're putting their body in a weird place that makes them lose their grips, and then their opponents are capitalizing on it. And so multiple times here, I think it was only a couple that people really got pressured into and smashed and really got passed off of the lapel. But what was happening was people were getting their sweep sort of, and then losing the match because they weren't able to finish the right way off of that. And so that's what's happening at Brown. A lot less. I saw a lot of double guard pulls at Brown, which is way more than black belt, sort of contrary to what we've seen in the past. I think in the past, brown belt at the lower weights was still hitting takedowns and normal guard pulls. It was almost from medium down.
At purple or brown?
Brown.
Okay.
One regular guard pull at lightweight. Everything else medium and down was double guard pulls. In feather and light feather and rooster, it was double guard pulls into penalties. Feather was 3 penalties, 2 penalties from the double guard pull, 3 penalties from the double guard pull. So sort of looking like what the black belt meta was
2 years ago.
2 years ago at Brown there.
Even a year ago.
Even a year ago, yeah.
So
but the upper weights were takedowns. So that's an interesting contrast, right? There's a lot of double guard pulls at the lower weights and actual
upper weight
takedowns.
Classes historically have had a little more takedowns just because you do not want to be on the bottom of a big guy a lot of times. So,
this time around, I think watching the purple belt finals was a little less interesting. I didn't get as much out of it. A lot of guard play, a lot of single leg X, a lot of De La Riva, things that I would expect. Not as much lapel guard stuff as I'd seen. People were playing it, but it was spotty. It was clear here that people that were playing lapel guards were getting it as maybe a tool here and there, sort of the way that some of the older black belts that trained with Keenan for a long time would use it.
Yeah.
Where it's not the game that they're playing, it's a thing they might do.
Yeah, they can take something, I take a piece and part here
and
then utilize it in part of my A game,
yep.
As an additional control point, but I'm not relying on it.
Yeah. And so I was seeing a lot of that at purple here, where people were getting it and then letting it go when it wasn't working for them, which I think is smart. Mm-hmm. Whereas at brown belt, it was sort of that contrast that I was talking about. People were holding on to it for way too long, or possibly not just not using it the right way once they get over, and it was getting them into trouble. At purple, people weren't forcing it that much. They were getting it, letting it go, getting it again, letting it go. No one was really sticking to it, but people were playing a lot of what are now normal meta guards, 50-50, single leg X, and De La Riva stuff, and then grabbing the lapels from there every once in a while. So, but outside of that, nothing super interesting from the meta on the purple side. But brown I thought was pretty interesting this year.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. I always really, really like listening to you.
Yammer.
No, just talk, yeah. But that's why I like talking to you. But I like hearing you talk about the difference in purple and brown, the meta shifts that you're seeing here, because I think it's really interesting.
Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting to see how Worlds goes if that ever happens again.
We'll see. Again, I haven't heard it announced, so I don't know if we're going to get one this year.
I don't think we'll get one this year.
I think we will.
You think?
I think December.
Christmas Worlds.
We might get Christmas. You should get it in under the wire. You don't want to not have a Worlds one year. Christmas Worlds. All right, December 29th, show up with your gi. We're moving we do what wrestling does. Move all the weight classes up 4 weight classes so you can fight.
You'll a 5-pound allowance.
Yeah, 5 to 8 pounds allowance. Like we merged 3 or 4 divisions together. We just
Sounds great.
Just so we said we did it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, neither would surprise me. So that does it for our recap of the 2020 IBJJF pans. Now on to our preview of Fight to Win 154, not Fight to Win 155. I had both of them open when I did the initial show opening. So we're gonna preview Fight to Win 155. This one's headlined by Manuel Hibamar versus John Thor Blank in a 10-minute, 185-pound no-gi title.
I mean, Hibamar looked great at Pans here. I know this is no-gi, but he's coming out of he took third, but had a great run.
Yeah.
One of the more impressive runs, one of the more impressive sets of matches from all of Pan Ams.
We haven't seen John in a little bit
while.
here. I don't know when the last time we saw him. We might have seen him at a Grapple Fest back at the beginning of the year, or we saw him at ADCC back in 2019. Back in 2019. He's looked really good. He can rip off anyone's leg.
Sure.
But I am really curious to see, because we just have not seen a ton from him against high-level competition, how he's going to look. Again, in the Fight to Win rule set that really favors the footlock meta, especially in no-gi, and we know John is a notoriously really dangerous leg locker. Wouldn't surprise me to see him kind of get a leg here from Hibamar.
Sure.
But I can also see Hibamar coming off this really good Pans performance, really pressuring into John and not letting him get under. But we saw John heel hook Rustam Chiziev at ADCC, which no one thought would happen, which really means that John can punch up super hard with those. So very curious to see how this goes. I don't really have a good pick on this one. I see both guys' pathway to victory here, but
if I have to pick, I'm picking Hibamar just because he's been active and I know he's been looking good. Assuming that he doesn't have some lingering weird injury that he picked up at, Pans is such a long tournament that it doesn't take much to end up
it's
finding out that you have an injury the next day or whatever. So he could be tired and beat up after the craziness of this past weekend, but
and then traveling again, traveling.
Sure.
I think we know where Hibamar is out of. But this is Florida, then up into Philly.
Yeah.
John is a local PA guy, so he doesn't have much of a drive at all. And now it's for a title. It's a main event.
Yeah.
Neither result would surprise me here. I think if John gets it done, we'll probably see it via sub. If Hibamar gets it done, it'll most likely be a try to positional work on top.
I agree.
Next one, we have another title defense from Juni Ocasio, this time versus Carlos Lima, a 10-minute, 135-pound no-gi title for the bantamweight. We saw Juni get it done via really quick heel hook submission over Marcelo Cohen. It had a very interesting finish. Again, I kind of look for Ocasio to do the same thing. Again, he's got super interesting submission finishes, and the way that he enters into the heel hooks, again, training with Cummings for so long, training the Unity camp for so long, he has such an unorthodox way that he enters into the legs and then is able to sort of finish. The way that he controls the knee line, he controls from a super low knee line, so you think you're out, and he's still able to heel hook you. He can go forward and back, inside and outside on the heel hooks. Again, that submission of Marcelo Cohen really kind of made me go the way that he finished those heel hooks is so uncommon, and he has a Z-lock win over, I think, Austin Daffrin, where it's an odd hip lock that I've only ever seen hit a couple of times, and it's I wouldn't want to fight Ocasio. Just because he's so unorthodox. All the positions that you don't understand, Ocasio has different ways of finishing, so I kind of think
a great position to be in.
Yeah, he kind of has the edge there. I'm going to pick Ocasio here. I know a little bit less about Carlos Lima's game. I'm less familiar with him in no-gi, but again, Juni has just looked next level, so I want to pick him here. Next, we have Maria how do you think how to pronounce
Malia
it?
Jacek
versus Natalia DeJesus. I think DeJesus didn't show for her weight class. So this is a 170-pound black belt title in the gi. Man, I don't know on this one.
I mean, we did just see Maria Malijasic in the finals. Looked great.
Very, very good.
Guard play looked wonderful.
But Natalia's coming from weight class up. Historically, has looked really good. It's really grindy,
and I was going to say, she's
style.
very heavy on top, which might make... I mean, this is going to go one of a couple ways. Either there's going to be some really exciting flourishes, or it's going to be very slow, Natalie grinding on top, and Jacek not being able to pull off her guard stuff, right? So, I don't know. It's hard to pick against Natalie
Yeah,
in a situation like this.
She's
But
looked really good in Fight to Win.
I was gonna say,
like her positional work, especially on Fight to Win, has just been like she just doesn't allow for a ton of offense to be put up on her at all.
and that's sort of what we saw happen against Maria Malajasic in the finals here was that there was just a lot of heavy pressure and she wasn't able to pull off a lot of the guard game things.
Right.
So I think that could happen again. But
you can see a very similar dynamic in this matchup,
Yes.
although didn't look bad.
she looked great.
Yeah.
She was very impressive guard play, but it was still a loss.
And then
I could see
Natalia
that same
being
thing
from weight
happening.
class above, coming down,
And playing that game.
yeah, and being like kind of have that stifling, like really top attritive pressure game.
Yeah.
So there's not any other matchups we have announced right now. I don't think as of this point in time. Yeah, that's all we have announced for right now. Look for more matchups. There's probably gonna be like 4 more crazy matchups as always announced for this one. But this one takes place October 17th in Philadelphia, PA. We might have someone up there. I don't know what's going on with the world right now, so I'm not certain yet. But should be a ton of fun. Big fan that Fight to Win's coming back, and it's Fight to Win and not a major.
Yeah.
I like covering Fight to Win. So other than that, not a whole lot else going on this week. I looked through a bunch of the other promotions that we usually cover. Guys have events coming up in the next couple of weeks, but there's nothing like pressing for the following week.
Yeah.
So
It's good to
just got
take a
Fight to Win right now.
little slow weekend after, watching
I think it's
hours and hours and hours of
Is it a
jiu-jitsu.
Saturday card? Is it 17th Saturday or is it Friday?
I have no idea.
All right. So
I never know what day it is.
So that does it for this week. Big major recap. What do you got going on this week?
Oh, jeez. I'm going back to Buffalo for the weekend coming up. It's
sorry.
my father-in-law's 60th birthday.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
That's a terrible drive.
Yeah, you get used to it. I've taken that drive a lot.
How many hours is that?
6.
That's not bad. That's not
Yeah.
terrible.
Yeah.
It's still like not a great
It's not so
drive.
bad. I usually like going up there, though, because then I can do jiu-jitsu somewhere. And I just don't think it's the good time to be, like, visiting jiu-jitsu school. That's my favorite part about traveling back and forth. And
That's
there's a
my
couple
favorite part about
places up
traveling
there.
too. Is
Yeah.
like occasionally I'll just like look at like who has a 6 a.m. class as I'm driving through this city and they're like, hey, we can come and train. Like that's again, that's like one of the reasons. That's the reason I travel nowadays. It's like, hey, bring your gi, bring your no gi stuff. And I'm like, we'll train 1 or 2 days or 3 days or 7 days.
It's a big part of it. And there's a couple clubs up there that I really like to train at. It's really nice. I mean, Buffalo's the nicest people on the planet. They're all South Canadians.
Nice?
Yeah, I mean, they're basically Canada. So
South Canadians.
Yeah.
I've never been to Buffalo. I've always wanted to go have an excuse.
Yeah.
Is that near Niagara?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I've been to Niagara before.
Don't go to the United States side for Niagara, though.
No, never. But the world's closed. Rachel's never been, so we keep trying to. We were trying to plan a trip for the past like 2 years.
Yeah.
And now she's out of school, and so we were gonna do it, but Canada is closed,
Canada's closed.
so we can't
To
go.
us.
I think both
They might
sides.
be
I think
everywhere, yeah.
both sides are closed. Like I know it's some of the Canadian grapplers. There's a couple Canadian shows coming up that we're gonna cover. But I think both sides are closed right now. They're not. We're going like everyone's like do their own thing right now, and then
And if you're gonna take the trip, take it when you can go to the Canadian side.
Yeah, the Canadian side for Niagara is
it's nicer.
much more spectacular, and you can see Horseshoe Falls as opposed to just seeing like the American side of the falls.
Maybe
which
the
is-
American side's pretty impressive.
It's not really.
I mean, it is.
In comparison,
In comparison,
we're like
it's not.
what 800 feet will get you versus like the American side. Like go to the Canadian side.
Yeah.
It's a cool
If you're taking the trip, go to the Canadian side.
It's great people. So I'm not going to Niagara right now, but at some point in the next, like when the world is normal, I will go and I will be like, what are you going next week, man? I'm going to Niagara Falls. It'll be fun. But that's it. So I'm not doing anything. I'm just taking a nap.
Yeah.
And
naps are great.
Dude, it's great. So yeah, I got nothing else going on this week.
Yeah, cool.
All right. So as always, in the show, I'm your host, Mange, with my co-host,
Zach.
and we are the Grappling Rewind. We'll see you on the mats whenever that is. Stay safe. If you like the show, please consider sharing it on Facebook with the folks at your gym. It's the best way that we grow the show, and we really appreciate it. You can reach out to us on email.
We also have Instagram. We have Facebook. We have Twitter. We have Google Plus.
Until that shuts down.
We have a website.
If you have an event you would like to have us cover, please let us know. If you have a name, like most people do, and you'd like to have us stop butchering it,
Let us know.
reach out to us. The show is also available on YouTube, Spotify, in addition to iTunes and every other podcast service. We very much appreciate your time, and thank you.